Welcome to the third video in our Unity project where we're making a enemy attack us. So in this video, we're going to actually take damage. Right now, when we get hit by those bolts, nothing happens. I mean, we do stop the bolts. You can see it doesn't pass through me. But we actually aren't taking any damage and otherwise not getting any confirmation that something happened. And so the goal of this video is to get a screen flash set up and then be able to actually lose health and see that decrease on the hit point bar. All right. So again, this is going to be a kind of another code heavy video because we're mostly just modifying scripts at this point. There's not much that we're doing in the Unity editor. There is one thing we need to do, and that is to go into our UI, our prefab for our canvas, and we need to make something new here. We need to make basically the screen flash thing that will tint the screen red. And so the easiest way to go about doing that is to create a new game object, just a new image. I'm going to call this hurt because this is going to be the thing that flashes on the screen when the player takes damage. Now, we want this to stretch to the entire screen. So when we go click on this rectangle transform over here, if we click this bottom right option, stretch, it's going to make it so that it stretches for the whole screen. Now, this would be incredibly useless and annoying if this is what we were planning on showing, but it's not. We want to actually set this to red with some amount of transparency to it. Now, it's going to fade very quickly, so it doesn't really matter, and it's going to start invisible. So even like a darker tint will fade out very quickly. So we can close that and uncheck image so it doesn't start the game. So like we don't have this initial tint red the entire time. We don't want that. So we'll uncheck that. And then make sure this is tagged as UI so that it can get found. We're going to do that same style of finding it as we did for the ammo. All right. That's really about the only thing we're doing in the Unity editor. The rest of this is going to be code-based. So let's go to the script for the projectile, and let's set this up. So if we want to deal damage to the player, we're going to need to figure out that it was a player that we hit. So in the on trigger enter, we want to check to see if what we hit was a player. So if other.gameObjects.tag is equal to player, then we're going to use a very useful built-in Unity command called send message. So we'll say other.gameObject.sendMessage, and I'm going to use send message upwards so that if it hits a collider that's a child of wherever all of our scripts live, it will still attempt to send this to the parent objects. And we're going to send the message apply damage, and we are going to pass it the parameter damage. So this effectively attempts to call the method apply damage on every script in the receiving object. So if it's a player, it's going to attempt to ask to run the method apply damage on all of the scripts. And that's actually the only change that we really need to make for this in order for this to work. So we just need to make sure that we have an apply damage script somewhere. So let's actually set up some of this, because I want to, I'll put that inside of weapon controller because I just can't really think of a better place to put it. But we do need to get the game manager ready to deal with taking in some of this information. So first, what we want inside of game manager, we're going to need to add another import. So we're going to say using Unity engine.ui. Because now we're going to use this to grab some stuff from the canvas, from our UI layer. So right after data dictionary, we will add some stuff for the UI for the health. So we're going to get the health bar front, and we're going to get the, we don't need the back because we're not going to do anything with it. We can get it if we want. It'll just be like a warning that we never do anything with it. I misspelled health up here. And we want to get UI hurt, which is that red screen. So let's create a method where we find these. So I'm just going to create a method here called private void find UI elements. And this just handles what we did in the previous thing for our weapon controller. So we could actually take this if we want. So I'm just going to grab that out of weapon controller and bring it over to game manager. And we're going to plop it in here. But I'm going to change what we're looking for. So I want to look for the health bar front. Remember, this is text matching to whatever you called it inside the editor. So you need to make sure the text of your health bar is the same as what we're looking for here. Then we'll look for the health bar back. Which is a image type, not a text mesh type. And then we're going to look for that hurt screen, which is just called hurt. Now, the reason why I turned this into a method is because I wanted, it's easier if, for say, it fails to find it when searching during awake or start or anything, we can just call this method again and it runs all of the searches for what we need. So let's give it on awake right after here. We'll do find UI elements. Now, hopefully that finds it. If not, we'll still do a null check and still run this if we failed to find it. So let's set up a change health method that will make it easier for us to update our health. So public void change health, and it will take in an amount. We're running health as an integer, so we'll keep it as an int. So player hit points minus equals amount. Then we want to update the hit point bar. So as long as the health bar exists, well, I guess let's look for it first. If we don't have it, run the find UI elements, and then as long as it exists, so if UI health bar is not equal to null, then we'll update the fill amount. Player hit points divided by player hit points max. And we do need this cast to float because otherwise this would be integer divided by integer, and integer division would result in an integer, which would just be like 0 or 1, which would not be very useful. So then the other thing that I want to do is start setting up the ability to remember my health in between levels. So we're going to do put data, which runs with our dictionary, player HP, and we're going to put in our current hit points, and we're going to put in our max hit points, just in case we allow that to change for whatever reason. And so we now have, inside that dictionary that persists between levels, a way to remember the player health. Now, I guess, thinking about it, the manager persists between levels anyway, so that may not be super useful, but at least we're keeping it inside of there in case we need it for something or anything. Then let's set up the hurt flash. So we'll make a method here called hurt flash. So we'll do kind of the same procedure. If it's not found, search for it. So if UI hurt is null, then find UI elements. So we'll attempt to rebind it. If the canvas wasn't created at the time that this thing searched for it, for instance. So if UI hurt is not equal to null, then we will enable it. And we will set the color. So we'll make it red, but with some amount of transparency. So we'll do like 15% transparent. Oops. Now we have to go make it fade out, and we'll do that inside of update. So right after here, when we deal with our ammo regeneration, fade out the hurt flash. So if it exists and it was enabled, then we'll take the color and set it equal to a new color, the same red, but the alpha channel will be multiplied by 0.96. So it'll basically reduce it by 4% red per frame draw. So this will fade out quicker on a faster screen, on a faster playthrough, like rendition. If you're running at like low frames per second, it might not look so good. And so if that's the case, then maybe we need to change this to, what's that called? Oh, I'm blanking on the term. Coroutines. So, so we would want to change it to a coroutine to tell it to turn off after X number of seconds. So this is just that once it fades out enough, just turn it off. And so this will look pretty smooth when we get hit. Now we just need to remember to call this when we do get hit, to make sure that all that happens. The other thing that I'm thinking is, because the UI reloads every time, on the new scene load, because we instantiated a new canvas, we might need to call the change health, passing it 0, just so it draws the health again. So on scene loaded, we might just want to say change health 0. So to update it when we go to the new level. So now all we need to do is respond to the projectile's apply damage method. So it's sending the signal apply damage, and we need somewhere to listen for it and to trigger it inside of my code. So we could put it pretty much in any script on the player. And so that's kind of a tough call where we do want to put it, if we want to just make a brand new script for it. Or if we want to just put it on the FPS controller. So I'll just create a new script and call this player hit, just so we don't modify our other like amazing works of arts of scripts. And we will put this script on the player. So we have the player hit script there. And it really doesn't have to have a lot. All it's going to have is public void apply damage, receiving an amount, and it will call game manager, tell it to change the health, and then it will tell it to make that that hurt flash appear. We could have put this anywhere. We could have put this in the middle, like on our FPS controller. We could have put it on our weapon script. But just to illustrate the point, I put it in a separate script so it's not kind of competing with the other ones, or so that it's not confusing and making it look weird. So now we should be able to test this. We should be able to receive damage from the enemy, and that damage should persist. So let's go back to Unity. Let's make sure our player is tagged as player, because that's a key component in actually registering the hit. And then let's hit play and see if we get a red flash whenever the enemy hits us. I guess it's got to hit us first. Not the most accurate. And so we got that red flash indicating that we took damage. So now let's go to the other level and make sure that our health is transitioning with us. And so you can see that our health stayed where we were at down there. And if I run up on the enemy now, I should still be able to take damage when it hit me. And so you can see that it's continuing to update my script once it decides to hit me better. So the health bar is continuing to go down. Now, we don't have anything set up for when the player runs out of health, so that's something we'll need to set up. So we go negative and nothing really happens, but we are out of health. And so we are correctly getting the enemy to attack us, and we're responding to that hit. So in the next video, we're going to work on being able to attack the enemy so that you can eventually destroy it. And then once we start setting up the enemy destruction, we'll set up the player being able to be defeated and maybe like some kind of respawn system. But yeah, so that's next on our agenda, is to be able to shoot our blaster at the enemy. And now this will go a lot quicker because we've already set up, or we've already decided on essentially the infrastructure for how we're going to handle this. So we just have to take our bolts and make it so that when it detects an enemy, it sends the apply damage signal to the enemy, and then maybe show a health bar over the enemy or something, and then have it explode when it runs out of health. So that's the plan. and I will see you in the next video where we run that plan.